The hum of the city outside faded into the background as Laura settled into her unexpected role. Lily had quickly warmed up to her, chattering nonstop about her favorite cartoons, her imaginary friend named Sparkle, and how she wished unicorns were real so they could ride one together. Laura listened intently, nodding and laughing at all the right moments. It was easy to see why Nathan was so protective of his daughter. Lily was bright, funny, and full of energy, the kind of kid who could light up any room just by walking into it. As the evening wore on, Laura found herself growing more comfortable in the Carters' home. The penthouse was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered breathtaking views of the skyline. But despite its polished appearance, there were touches of warmth scattered throughout. A stack of children's books on the coffee table, a half-finished puzzle on the dining room counter, and framed photos lining the walls. Laura wandered over to take a closer look, her curiosity getting the better of her. The photographs caught her attention immediately. In one, Nathan stood beside a woman with long blonde hair and a radiant smile. They looked happy, their arms wrapped around each other as if nothing else in the world mattered. Another photo showed the same woman holding Lily as a baby, her face glowing with love. Laura felt a pang of recognition but couldn't quite place it. She studied the images carefully, trying to piece together why this woman seemed so familiar. "Who's that?" Lily asked, appearing at Laura's side with her coloring book in hand. Laura pointed to the blonde woman in the picture. "Is this your mom?" Lily shook her head. "Nope, that's Aunt Emma. She was Daddy's girlfriend." "Oh," Laura said softly, her heart skipping a beat. "What happened to her?" "She went to heaven," Lily replied matter-of-factly, as though explaining something as simple as the weather. "Daddy says she's watching us from up there now." Laura's throat tightened and she forced a smile. "That's very sweet. I'm sure she loved you both very much." Lily nodded solemnly before returning to her coloring. Laura stayed where she was, staring at the photos for a moment longer. Something about the name Emma tugged at her memory, but she couldn't pinpoint why. Shaking off the feeling, she decided to focus on keeping Lily entertained instead. Meanwhile, Nathan sat stiffly at the head of a long dining table in a dimly lit restaurant. The investors seated across from him were polite but distant, their questions sharp and probing. Nathan tried to stay focused, answering inquiries about his company's growth projections and market strategies, but his mind kept drifting back to his apartment and to Laura. He couldn't shake the nagging sense that he knew her from somewhere. Her voice, her laugh, even the way she moved. It all felt eerily familiar. But no matter how hard he racked his brain, he couldn't recall meeting her before tonight. Was it possible she'd worked for him at some point? Or maybe she'd been introduced to him through Rachel? None of it made sense. Just as he was about to dismiss the thought entirely, one of the investors, a middle-aged man with thinning gray hair, leaned back in his chair and smiled knowingly. "You seem distracted, Mr. Carter. Everything okay at home?" Nathan blinked, startled. "Oh yes, just a little tired, that's all." "Well, don't let me pry," the man continued, raising his glass of wine. "But speaking of home life, I think I know someone who might be able to help you out. Ever heard of a Laura Bennett? Used to work at Parker & Co.'s, if I'm not mistaken." The name hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. "Wait, you know her?" The investor shrugged casually. "Not personally, but my wife mentioned her once, said she was brilliant at her job. Why? Is she the babysitter you called tonight?" Nathan hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I think so. To be honest, I accidentally dialed her number. I thought she was someone else." The investor chuckled. "Small world, isn't it? Anyway, if it's the same Laura Bennett, she's got quite the reputation. Smart, driven, and loyal to a fault. You lucked out, my friend." Nathan nodded absently, his thoughts racing. If this was true, if Laura really did have ties to his professional circle, then why hadn't he recognized her earlier? And why did her name leave him feeling uneasy? Back at the apartment, Laura tucked Lily into bed after reading 2 bedtime stories and singing a lullaby. The little girl drifted off quickly, clutching her stuffed bunny tightly. Laura lingered in the doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. There was something bittersweet about the scene, though she couldn't put her finger on why. Her gaze drifted to the framed newspaper clipping hanging near the entrance hall. It was an article celebrating Nathan's rise to success, detailing how he'd built his company from the ground up after losing everything, including the love of his life. Laura's breath hitched as she read the headline, "Tech CEO overcomes tragedy to achieve success." And then it clicked. Emma. The name came, rushing back to her in a flood of memories. Emma Wilson, the vibrant, kind-hearted woman who had been her best friend since college. The same Emma who had died in a car accident 5 years ago, leaving behind a fiancé and a newborn daughter. Laura sank onto the couch, her hands trembling as she covered her face. She hadn't thought about Emma in months, not because she'd forgotten her, but because remembering hurt too much. Guilt washed over her like a tidal wave. She should have been there for Emma during those final days. She should have visited more often, called more frequently, done something, anything to ease her friend's pain. Instead, she'd let life get in the way, burying herself in work and excuses. And now here she was, sitting in Emma's fiancé's apartment, playing babysitter to her goddaughter. Fate had a cruel sense of humor. When Nathan returned home later, that night he found Laura still on the couch staring blankly at the wall. At first he assumed she was simply tired, but the strained look on her face told him otherwise. He set his briefcase down quietly and approached her cautiously. "Hey," he said gently. "Everything okay?" Laura glanced up, startled. For a moment, she considered brushing him off with a quick, "I'm fine." But something in his tone, his genuine concern, made her pause. Taking a deep breath, she decided to come clean. "I knew Emma," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "She was my best friend." Nathan froze, his expression unreadable. "What?" "We met in college," Laura continued, her words spilling out faster now. "We were inseparable for years. When she started dating you, I was thrilled for her. She talked about you all the time. You were her happily ever after. And then she passed away and I—" Her voice cracked, and she looked away, blinking back tears. "I wasn't there for her when she needed me most. I failed her, Nathan, and seeing you again, being here with Lily, it's bringing everything back." Silence hung heavy between them. Nathan sank into the armchair opposite her, his mind reeling. He remembered meeting Laura briefly at Emma's funeral, though they hadn't exchanged more than a few polite words. Now, looking at her, he understood why she'd seemed so familiar. She carried traces of Emma in her smile, in her laugh, in the way she cared for people. "I didn't recognize you at first," he admitted finally. "But now that you've said it, I can see it. You remind me of her." Laura managed a small, sad smile. "She used to say we balanced each other out. She was the dreamer. I was the planner. Together, we made a good team." They sat in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Nathan spoke. "Thank you for telling me. I don't know what to say, honestly. But I'm glad you're here. Lily seems to adore you." "That makes one of us," Laura murmured, glancing toward the hallway where Lily slept soundly. "I never expected to end up here, of all places. Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it?" Nathan nodded slowly. "Yeah, it does." Neither of them said anything more that night. But as they prepared to part ways, Nathan extended a tentative invitation. "If you're free tomorrow, maybe we could grab lunch just to talk more. About Emma, or anything else you want." Laura hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I'd like that." As she left the apartment, closing the door softly behind her, Nathan couldn't help but feel that something significant had shifted. Whether it was for better or worse, he wasn't sure yet. All he knew was that Laura's arrival had stirred up emotions he'd buried long ago, and that perhaps, just perhaps, facing them might be exactly what he needed. The next morning, Nathan woke up feeling like he'd been hit by a truck. His mind was heavy with thoughts of Emma and the unexpected connection to Laura. He replayed their conversation from the night before over and over in his head, trying to make sense of it all. How could he have missed recognizing Laura? Why had fate brought her into his life again after so many years? And what was he supposed to do now? Lily bounded into his room before he could dwell on those questions for too long. She climbed onto the bed, her curls bouncing as she grinned at him. "Daddy, can we have pancakes?" Nathan forced a smile. "Sure thing, kiddo. Let's get started." As they made breakfast together, flipping pancakes and spilling syrup everywhere, Nathan couldn't help but notice how much Lily reminded him of Emma. Her laugh, her curiosity, even the way she wrinkled her nose when she was deep in thought. It was all Emma. The realization both warmed his heart and broke it at the same time. Later that afternoon, Nathan met Laura at a small cafe near Central Park. It was quiet, cozy, and far enough away from the hustle of the city to feel peaceful. When he walked in, he spotted her immediately. She sat by the window, sipping a cup of tea and staring out at the park. For a moment he hesitated, unsure if this meeting was a good idea. But then she turned and saw him, giving him a small, tentative smile. He took a deep breath and joined her. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Thanks for coming." "Of course," Laura replied, stirring her tea absent-mindedly. "I wasn't sure if I should accept your invitation, but I think we need to talk." Nathan nodded. "Yeah, me too." They ordered sandwiches and spent the first few minutes making small talk about Lily and how well-behaved she'd been the previous night. But soon, the conversation turned serious. Laura set her sandwich down and looked at Nathan directly. "I've carried guilt around for years," she confessed, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "After Emma died, I told myself I should have done more. I should have been there for her when she needed me most. Instead, I let work take priority. I didn't visit as often as I should have. I didn't call enough. And now every time I think about her, I wonder if she felt abandoned." Nathan listened silently, his chest tightening. He understood that kind of guilt all too well. After Emma's death, he'd spent months blaming himself for not noticing signs of her struggles sooner. If only he'd paid closer attention, maybe things would have turned out differently. "You weren't the only one who felt like they failed her," he said quietly. "I blamed myself for a long time too. Maybe we both did everything we could given the circumstances, or maybe we didn't. Either way, beating ourselves up won't bring her back." Laura nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "You're right. But it's hard to let go of that guilt, you know? Especially when you loved someone so much." Nathan reached across the table and placed a hand on hers. "I know. Believe me. I know." For a while they sat in silence, each lost in their own memories of Emma. Then Laura cleared her throat and changed the subject slightly. "What about Lily? How are you handling everything as a single dad?" Nathan sighed, leaning back in his chair. "It's tough, honestly. Some days are easier than others. Lily keeps me grounded, though. She's the reason I wake up every morning and try to be better. For her, for Emma, for myself. But sometimes I worry I'm not doing enough. I work long hours and I don't always have time to give her the attention she deserves." "That's normal," Laura said gently. "No one expects you to be perfect. You're human. And from what I saw last night, Lily adores you. That says a lot." Her words brought a flicker of comfort to Nathan, though doubt still lingered. "Maybe. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm failing her somehow. Like I'm not living up to the promises I made to Emma before she passed." Laura tilted her head, studying him carefully. "Do you think Emma would want you to feel this way? To carry all this weight alone?" Nathan blinked, caught off guard by the question. He hadn't considered it that way before. "Probably not," he admitted after a pause. "Emma always hated seeing people suffer unnecessarily. She'd tell me to stop being so hard on myself." "Then maybe it's time to listen to her," Laura suggested softly. "Let yourself heal, Nathan. Let Lily see you happy again. That's what Emma would have wanted." Her words stayed with him long after their lunch ended. As they parted ways outside the cafe, Nathan felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, gratitude, and something else he couldn't quite name. Talking to Laura had opened old wounds, but it had also given him a glimpse of hope. Perhaps healing was possible after all. Over the next few weeks, Laura became a regular presence in Nathan and Lily's lives. At first, it was just babysitting here and there, filling in whenever Nathan needed extra help. But gradually, her role expanded. She began helping Nathan organize Lily's schedule, suggesting fun activities for them to do together, and even offering advice on parenting challenges. Slow time, she stopped feeling like an outsider and started feeling like part of the family. Lily, of course, adored her. "Laura is the best," she declared one evening during dinner. "She makes the coolest crafts, and she lets me stay up late sometimes." Nathan chuckled, glancing at Laura, who was sitting beside him at the table. "Well, I'm glad you approve." Laura smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Just don't tell your dad about the late nights, okay? It'll be our little secret." Despite the growing bond between them, Nathan couldn't ignore the whispers of doubt creeping into his mind. Was it wise to let Laura get so close? What if she decided to leave one day? Would Lily be able to handle another loss? These questions gnawed at him, especially after Rachel, the ever-protective older sister, voiced her concerns. "You barely know this woman," Rachel said bluntly during one of their phone calls. "She's connected to Emma, Nathan. That's a lot of emotional baggage to bring into your life. Are you sure you're ready for that?" "I trust her," Nathan replied firmly. "And Lily loves her. Isn't that what matters most?" Rachel sighed. "I'm not saying she's a bad person. I just don't want you to get hurt again. You're vulnerable, Nate. Don't rush into anything." Her words stuck with him, planting seeds of uncertainty. One evening, as Laura tucked Lily into bed, Nathan pulled her aside to talk. "Rachel thinks I'm letting you get too close," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "She's worried about how this might affect Lily and me." Laura's expression softened. "I understand where she's coming from. Trust takes time, especially when it comes to family. But I'm not here to replace anyone, Nathan. I just want to help. If you feel like I'm overstepping, I'll step back. Whatever's best for you and Lily." Her willingness to respect his boundaries eased some of his fears, but the tension remained. Over the following days, Nathan noticed subtle changes in Laura's behavior. She seemed quieter, more reserved, as if she were holding herself back. It bothered him more than he cared to admit. Finally, one evening after Lily had gone to bed, Nathan confronted her. "Are you okay?" he asked, finding her standing by the window, staring out at the city lights. "You've been distant lately." Laura turned to face him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "I heard Rachel's comments," she admitted. "About me being too involved. I don't want to cause trouble, Nathan. If my being here is making things complicated, I can leave." Nathan stepped closer, shaking his head. "No, I don't want you to leave. You've been amazing with Lily, and with me. I need time to figure things out. Can we keep moving forward slowly?" Laura hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." Slowly. As they stood there, bathed in the soft glow of the apartment lights, Nathan realized something important. Healing wasn't going to happen overnight. Trust wouldn't come easily. But with Laura by his side, he felt like he might finally be ready to take the first steps toward a brighter future. Nathan Carter leaned back in his leather chair, staring at the glowing screen of his phone. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second feeling like a countdown to disaster. His 6-year-old daughter, Lily, was sprawled on the living room, floor-coloring pictures of unicorns and rainbows, her giggles filling the otherwise quiet penthouse apartment. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars against the dark sky, but Nathan barely noticed. All he could think about was the mess he'd found himself in. It wasn't supposed to be this hard. Being a single dad and running a successful tech startup should have been manageable. At least that's what everyone kept telling him. But tonight was shaping up to be one of those nights where everything went wrong all at once. First, his regular babysitter canceled last minute because of some family emergency. Then when he tried calling another sitter from his contacts list, nothing happened. No answer, no response, just silence. He didn't have time for this. Not tonight. Tonight was important. A group of investors were flying in from out of town, and they wanted to meet over dinner. This was the kind of opportunity that could take his company to the next level, maybe even secure its future for years to come. Missing it wasn't an option, but leaving Lily alone while he attended the dinner, that wasn't an option either. With a frustrated sigh, Nathan scrolled through his phone again, hoping to find someone, anyone, who might be available on such short notice. His eyes landed on a name halfway down the list. Laura Bennett. He didn't recognize the name immediately, but desperation pushed him forward. Maybe she was someone Rachel, his sister, had recommended once? Or perhaps someone from work who mentioned being good with kids. Whatever the case, he decided to give it a shot. After all, what choice did he have? He hit the call button and waited, tapping his foot nervously against the hardwood floor. The phone rang twice before a cheerful voice answered. "Hello?" "Hi," Nathan said quickly, his tone apologetic. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I think I may have dialed the wrong number. Are you a babysitter?" There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Then the woman laughed softly. "Well, not exactly. But if you're looking for help with your kid, I suppose I can step in for tonight. What's going on?" Relief washed over Nathan, though it was tinged with confusion. Hadn't he called a professional babysitter? Why did this woman sound so casual? Still, there was something reassuring about her voice. Calm, confident, and kind. And right now, calm and confident was exactly what he needed. "I'm really sorry about this," he began, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "I've got a big meeting tonight and my usual babysitter had to cancel. I thought I saved your number under emergency babysitters, but clearly, I made a mistake." "No worries," the woman replied smoothly. "I'll come by and help out. Just tell me where you live and I'll be there in half an hour." 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Nathan opened the door to find a woman standing there, holding a tote bag slung over her shoulder. She looked younger than he expected, mid-30s maybe, with warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. Her dark hair was pulled back into a loose ponytail, and she wore jeans and a simple sweater. There was nothing overly formal or polished about her appearance, but there was something comforting about her presence. "You must be Nathan," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "And you must be Lily." She crouched down to eye level with the little girl who was peeking curiously around the corner of the couch. "Hi there. My name's Laura. Your dad tells me you're pretty awesome at drawing unicorns. Is that true?" Lily nodded shyly, clutching her crayons tightly. "Yeah, do you want to see?" Laura grinned. "Absolutely. Lead the way." As the two of them disappeared into the living room, Nathan stood frozen in the doorway, watching them. Something about Laura felt oddly familiar, though he couldn't place why. Maybe it was the way she spoke to Lily with genuine interest and patience. Or maybe it was the ease with which she seemed to settle into their home, as if she belonged there. Either way, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd met her somewhere before. Shaking off the thought, Nathan followed them into the living room. Laura was already seated on the floor beside Lily, flipping through her coloring book and offering suggestions. "Wow, these are amazing," she said enthusiastically. "You've got real talent, kiddo." Lily beamed at the compliment, her earlier shyness melting away. "Thanks. Daddy says I'm going to be an artist someday." "Well, I believe it," Laura said with a wink. Turning to Nathan, she added, "So tell me more about this big meeting of yours. Anything I need to know before you leave?" Nathan hesitated, still unsure whether letting a stranger stay with his daughter was a good idea. But then he glanced at Lily, who was chatting animatedly with Laura about her favorite colors, and decided to take a leap of faith. "It's just a business dinner with some potential investors," he explained. "Nothing too crazy. They're staying at the hotel downtown, so I shouldn't be gone longer than a couple of hours." Laura nodded. "Got it. Don't worry. I'll keep things running smoothly here." Does she have any allergies I should know about? Any bedtime routines? She's allergic to peanuts, Nathan replied, ticking off details as he remembered them. And bedtime is usually around 8:30. We read a story together, brush her teeth, and then lights out. Perfect. Easy enough. Laura smiled reassuringly. Go ahead and focus on your meeting. Everything will be fine here. Despite his lingering doubts, Nathan found himself relaxing slightly. Laura seemed competent and trustworthy, and Lily clearly adored her already. With a final glance at his daughter, he grabbed his coat and headed for the door. As the elevator descended to the lobby, Nathan couldn't help but wonder how this evening would unfold. Who was Laura Bennett, really? And why did she feel so familiar? For now, though, those questions would have to wait. All that mattered was getting through the next few hours, and hoping he hadn't made a huge mistake. Back in the apartment, Laura watched Nathan leave, her expression thoughtful. She hadn't planned on spending her evening babysitting a stranger's child, but something about this situation felt strangely serendipitous. As she turned her attention back to Lily, who was eagerly showing off her latest masterpiece, Laura pushed aside her doubts and focused on the task at hand. Whatever brought her here tonight, she decided, she would make the most of it. Over the next few weeks, Nathan and Laura worked hard to rebuild the trust between them. They took things slow, focusing on small moments rather than big gestures. Laura continued to help with Lily, but she also made an effort to spend more one-on-one time with Nathan. They would sit together in the evenings after Lily went to bed, talking about everything and nothing. Work, hobbies, dreams they'd once had but put aside. These conversations weren't always easy. Sometimes old wounds resurfaced or doubts crept in. But both of them were determined to move forward, even if it meant stumbling along the way. For Nathan, having Laura around felt like a lifeline. She didn't try to fix him or push him into feeling better. Instead, she listened when he needed to talk and offered quiet support when words failed him. It was comforting, in a way he hadn't expected. He found himself opening up to her more than he ever thought possible, sharing pieces of his life he hadn't shared with anyone since Emma's passing. One evening, as they sat side by side on the couch watching a movie, Lily curled up asleep between them. Nathan turned to Laura and said, "You know, I never told anyone this, but I used to blame myself for Emma's accident." Laura looked at him, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, staring down at his hands. "I kept thinking, what if I'd noticed something was wrong? What if I'd been paying closer attention? Maybe I could have stopped her from driving that night." "Oh, Nathan," Laura said softly, reaching out to touch his arm. "That wasn't your fault. None of it was. Accidents happen. You can't carry that weight forever." "I know," he replied, though his voice wavered, "but knowing it doesn't make it any easier to let go." She nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. "It's okay to feel guilty. Losing someone you love changes you, but holding on to that guilt won't bring Emma back. It'll only keep you stuck." Her words struck a chord deep inside him. For so long he'd carried the burden of Emma's death alone, convinced that letting go meant forgetting her. But Laura was right. He couldn't keep living in the past, not when Lily depended on him to be present, and not when there was still so much life left to live. Meanwhile, Laura was navigating her own complicated emotions. Being in Nathan's world brought back memories of Emma she hadn't faced in years. Every photo, every story Lily told about her Aunt Emma, every mention of Emma's name stirred up feelings of loss and regret, but it also reminded her of how much she loved her friend and how much Emma had loved Nathan and Lily. One afternoon, while Lily was at school and Nathan was in a meeting, Laura wandered through the apartment, taking in the little details that made it uniquely theirs. There were pictures of Lily growing up, trophies from Nathan's college sports days, and mementos from family vacations. In the corner of the living room stood a piano, its keys slightly dusty from lack of use. Curious, Laura sat down and pressed a few notes. The sound filled the quiet space, soft and melancholy. Emma had loved music. She used to joke that if she couldn't sing, she wouldn't be able to breathe. Laura smiled faintly at the memory, then began playing a simple melody, one of Emma's favorites. As the notes drifted through the air, tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She missed her friend desperately, but she also felt grateful for the time they'd shared. When Nathan came home later that day, he found Laura still sitting at the piano, her fingers resting lightly on the keys. "You play beautifully," he said, setting his briefcase down by the door. Laura looked up, startled. "Not really. I remembered how much Emma loved this song. I thought it might sound nice." "It does," Nathan replied, walking over to join her. "Emma used to play it all the time. She taught me a few chords once, but I never got the hang of it." "Want me to show you?" Laura asked, scooting over to make room for him on the bench. Nathan hesitated, then nodded. "Sure, why not?" For the next hour, Laura guided him through the basics, laughing gently whenever he hit a wrong note. It was a light-hearted moment, one that helped ease the heaviness that often lingered between them. By the time Lily burst through the door shouting, "Daddy, Laura!" they were both smiling. As the weeks turned into months, their bond grew stronger. Nathan introduced Laura to his closest friends and colleagues, explaining simply that she was someone special who had come into their lives unexpectedly. Some people raised eyebrows. After all, inviting a near stranger into your home wasn't exactly common, but most could see how much happier Nathan seemed. Even Rachel softened her stance, admitting privately to Nathan that Laura seemed genuinely kind and caring. Lily, of course, adored Laura completely. To her, Laura wasn't just a babysitter or a temporary helper. She was family. One Saturday morning, as they baked cookies together in the kitchen, Lily turned to Laura and asked, "Are you gonna marry Daddy?" Laura nearly dropped the bowl of cookie dough she was holding. "What makes you say that?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light. "Because you're here all the time," Lily replied matter-of-factly, "and you make him smile. Plus, you're super fun." Nathan, who had been reading the newspaper at the table, choked on his coffee. "Lily," he exclaimed, his face turning red. "That's enough matchmaking for today." Laura laughed nervously, ruffling Lily's hair. "Your dad's right. We're just friends, sweetheart. No weddings anytime soon." But later that night, as Nathan tucked Lily into bed, she whispered, "I hope she stays, Daddy. She makes us happy." Nathan kissed her forehead, his heart swelling with emotion. "Me too, kiddo. Me too." Despite the progress they'd made, challenges remained. One evening, as they cleaned up after dinner, Laura hesitated before saying, "Nathan, we need to talk." He froze, dread settling in his stomach. "Is everything okay?" She nodded quickly, reassuring him. "Yes, it's fine. It's just, I've been thinking a lot about us, about where we're headed. I care about you and Lily so much, but I don't want to rush anything. If you're not ready for whatever this is, I understand." Nathan set down the dish towel and turned to face her. "Laura, I care about you too, more than I thought I could care about anyone after Emma. But I'm scared. Scared of getting hurt again. Scared of messing things up with Lily. I don't want to ruin what we have." "You won't," Laura said firmly, stepping closer. "We'll take it one step at a time. Together." Her confidence gave him courage. Slowly, he reached out and took her hand. "Okay. Together." As they stood there, holding hands in the glow of the kitchen lights, Nathan felt a sense of peace wash over him. Healing wasn't going to be easy, and neither was building something new. But for the first time in years, he felt hopeful. With Laura by his side, he believed they could create a future worth looking forward to, one filled with laughter, love, and maybe even a little bit of magic. The months rolled by, and Nathan, Laura, and Lily settled into a rhythm that felt almost natural. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of doubt, hesitation, and even arguments, but it was real. They learned to navigate each other's quirks, fears, and hopes, building something stronger than any of them had anticipated. One crisp autumn afternoon, Nathan decided to host a small gathering at his apartment. He invited a handful of close friends, colleagues, and family members, including Rachel, who had finally warmed up to the idea of Laura being part of their lives. The purpose wasn't formal. It was just a casual get-together to celebrate the end of a busy season at work, and secretly, to introduce Laura more officially into their circle. As guests arrived, the penthouse buzzed with laughter and conversation. Lily darted between adults, proudly showing off her latest drawings and insisting everyone admire her unicorn masterpiece. Laura stayed close to her, helping her pass out snacks and refill drinks. Watching them together, Nathan couldn't help but smile. They looked like they belonged side by side, as if fate itself had brought them together. Rachel approached him while he was pouring himself a glass of wine. "You seem different," she said, studying him carefully. "Happier." Nathan chuckled, glancing toward Laura, who was now crouched down beside Lily, tying a loose ribbon around her ponytail. "Yeah, I guess I am. She has that effect on people." Rachel nodded slowly, her expression softening. "I'll admit, I was skeptical at first, but seeing how much she cares about you and Lily, well, maybe I was wrong. She's good for you, Nate." "Thanks, Rach," Nathan replied, giving her a grateful hug. For so long, Rachel had been his protector, shielding him from anything, or anyone, that might hurt him. Her approval meant more than he could put into words. Later in the evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the city lights sparkled outside the windows, Nathan raised his glass to make a toast. Everyone quieted down, turning their attention to him. Even Lily paused mid-bite of a cookie to listen. "I just want to say thank you," Nathan began, his voice steady but warm. "Thank you all for being here tonight, for supporting me through thick and thin. Life hasn't always been easy, but having people like you in my corner makes everything better." He paused, looking directly at Laura. "And I especially want to thank someone who walked into our lives unexpectedly but changed them forever. Laura, I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm grateful every single day that you're here. You've helped me heal, taught me how to laugh again, and shown Lily, and me, what it means to truly care about someone." Laura's cheeks flushed pink as murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. She stood up, shaking her head slightly. "I didn't do anything special," she protested, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You're the ones who welcomed me into your world." "Well, we're glad you're here," Rachel chimed in, raising her glass. "To new beginnings. To new beginnings." Everyone echoed, clinking glasses. After the party wound down and the last guest left, Nathan, Laura, and Lily gathered on the couch, exhausted but content. Lily yawned loudly, curling up against Laura's side. "This was fun," she mumbled, sleepily. "Can we do it again soon?" Laura smiled, brushing a strand of hair away from Lily's face. "We'll see, sweetheart. Now, it's time for bed." Once Lily was tucked in, Nathan and Laura stepped out onto the balcony, wrapping themselves in blankets against the cool night air. The city stretched out before them, alive with lights and sounds. Fireworks suddenly lit up the sky, bursting in vibrant colors that reflected off the windows of nearby buildings. "Wow," Laura whispered, leaning against the railing. "Where did those come from?" Nathan shrugged, grinning. "Who knows? Maybe someone's celebrating something big." They stood there silently, watching the display unfold. Each explosion painted the sky in shades of gold, red, and blue, casting fleeting shadows across their faces. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply let the beauty of the moment wash over them. Finally, Laura turned to Nathan, her eyes shining. "Do you ever feel like life is full of second chances?" she asked softly. "All the time," he replied, taking her hand in his. "Especially now." She smiled, squeezing his fingers gently. "Me too." In the weeks that followed, Nathan and Laura continued to take things slow, savoring each step of their journey. They went on dates, simple outings to parks, museums, and cozy cafes, always making sure Lily was included whenever possible. They laughed together, argued occasionally, and grew closer with every passing day. One evening, as they sat on the couch flipping through photo albums, Lily crawled into Laura's lap and handed her a crayon drawing. "This is for you," she announced proudly. The picture showed 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a rainbow, with the words "Our Family" scrawled across the top. Laura's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the drawing. "Lily, this is beautiful," she said, pulling the little girl into a tight hug. "Thank you." Nathan watched the exchange, his heart swelling with emotion. He realized then that their family wasn't defined by blood or titles. It was defined by love, trust, and the choice to stand by one another no matter what. That night, as they tucked Lily into bed, Nathan lingered in the doorway, watching Laura smooth the blanket over the sleeping child. When she joined him in the hallway, he pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "You know," he murmured, resting his forehead against hers, "I never thought I'd find happiness again after Emma. But here you are, proving me wrong every single day." Tears welled in Laura's eyes, but she smiled through them. "We found each other when we least expected it, and I wouldn't trade this for anything in the world." As they stood there, wrapped in each other's embrace, Nathan knew they still had challenges ahead. Healing wasn't linear, and love wasn't without its complications. But for the first time in years, he felt ready to face whatever came next, with Laura by his side and Lily leading the way. Together, they had built something extraordinary, a family forged not out of obligation or expectation, but out of resilience, forgiveness, and hope. And as long as they had each other, Nathan believed they could overcome anything.